Fix It Tony here. Thanks for clicking on my video. So I've been wanting to do this video for a while. You know, these fat tire bikes are getting so popular. Everyone wants to buy one. The deals out there are pretty nice, but a lot of people don't know what they're getting. And there's different quality and there's different things you want to look for in one of these bikes that's going to make it a much better experience as an owner and a rider. So we have two different bikes here. One's a little bit more budget than the other. The DYU, this is no longer available, but if you look at the way the frame is, this frame is still out there. A lot of them have different manufacturer names on them, but they are the same, you know, bikes basically. So you have the hardtails, which don't have a rear suspension. You can see no rear suspension. And some people that works better, and I'll explain why that works better sometimes. And then you have these that have the full suspension, which are actually a far superior bike. And you can see there's going to be things about this bike that make it better than that bike, and why after almost 2 years of ownership, this is the better bike, but there are some trade-offs. So let's get to it. So let's talk about voltage. Most bikes in this realm run 750 watt motors, and they say 1000 watt peak. You don't really want to worry about peak. You want what your running wattage is. Most are 750. Why are they 750? They're 750 because most local laws do not allow you to ride 1000 watt or greater motors on the street. And the reason why is exactly why you would think. They're too fast. They're basically as fast as a full-on moped or motorcycle, and because of that they require either a moped license or a M1 or M2 license, which is the M2's the moped. So let's talk about what the differences are. So even though these are both 750 motors, and you can probably see in there, you'll look at the hub. When you go to buy one of these, look at the hub and see who the manufacturer is. So we'll work our way over here. The good manufacturer, and I'm probably not saying this right, is the Bafang or whatever motors. These ones are the superior product. A lot of the cheaper bikes you will notice have either no brand, or they'll say something like this, I don't know, DAAO. I don't even know who that is, but I will tell you, even though these are both 750 watt motors, this is the superior motor, and I'll tell you why. This bike is not only faster, but it's smoother. That motor, after 2 years, we're going to be making a claim on it because it vibrates so bad through the whole chassis as you're riding. You can feel like the harmonics of it, which just tells you the windings are not superior to the windings are in this motor. So when you're looking for a bike, the Bafang motors are the ones to look for. They are the better electric motors that you want to use. And we're talking about voltage. So 48 volts is generally, you'll see, with a 72 watt system. So this is the same bike, which is the one with the Bafang motor, and this is the other one. And again, here's the other thing you're looking for. How many amps can this thing output? 2 amps per hour. So you do the math, you can figure out with a that battery right there roughly is about 16 to 18 amp hours. So you just do the math, you can figure that you're going to need about 8 hours to charge that battery. And then you have the other one here, and the output is 3 amp hours. So this one actually outputs more amp hours and charges this battery faster than it does the other battery, which is a big deal because if you're stopping and going and you want to make sure you have the, you know, you may not have the range because this battery is only 15 amp hours, so you can charge this in half the time. The issue is these are Samsung cells, and you have to look at the manufacturer to make sure who does Samsung cells and who uses generic cells. So these are Samsung and these are generic. The problem with the generic cells is, yes, the BMS, which is the battery management system, does charge faster, but the trade-off is this battery is only charging to about 11 or 12, so it's already degraded almost a third after 2 years. This one will still take a full charge. Takes longer to charge, but will still take a full charge. So, and I'll show you too, they have the same amount of mileage. So this bike has 199 miles on it. It's fully charged. This bike here, the same bike, and it just turned off on me. It has an auto off feature. I haven't reset the time it takes. This one has 210. So this one has slightly more miles. These are the stock tires on this bike too. And as you can see, they barely look worn. I did upgrade the batteries on this. Again, this is the cheaper bike, only by a couple $100, but I put the Hellscapes on this because the original tires are so thin, you go over, you know, just a couple of thorns and you blow out both tires. This one, it had only one flat and I put heavy duty tubes in it and haven't had a problem ever since. And that flat didn't happen until almost 200 miles. So that tells you, again, you get better tires. You get a name brand tire. It's a Kenda tire compared to, there's a generic tire on this one. Now, these are what I recommend if you go aftermarket, the HEB's Allscapes. It has a little bit of vibration. They have a more roadworthy tire, but this tire, the Black Cat, it's a far superior tire. It's very, very, very thick. The only thing, again, that you run into issues with are the wheels on these. Even though they look the same, this is a far superior, less superior wheel than this one, and I'll tell you why. The ridges in here are not uniform, so actually it was hard to get this thing to balance correctly. And you can see even with the brakes, you can see the difference in the brakes. These are thinner, these are thicker. They have more holes. Have zero problem with the brakes on this bike. This bike actually came with Gemma brakes, which is a good name brand, Shimano, which is a good shifter, even though, most of these are knockoffs. This does also have Shimano, but it has a no-name braking system. And I've had nothing but problems with the brakes on this. The brakes are squeaky, they make noise. The stopping distance is definitely farther in this one than this one. They use a very similar shock setup. Actually, it's exactly the same shock setup, and these aren't very good. I'll tell you right now, again, when you're looking at a good quality fork, if you see this style, it's a very cheap style. It gets stuck. It requires a lot of lubrication to keep it working correctly. So that's another point. I know it says Schwinn on it, but this is not a Schwinn. I just put that on there because there's nothing there, and I had an emblem sitting around. Headlights. Again, I actually upgraded the headlight on this one too. I took a headlight, bought one that was for this bike and put in this one. This one has a very far superior headlight now that was on this one before, because again, these little lights, if you see them any smaller than this and don't have that focus lens in them, they're terrible. They just don't cast the light that you need in order to see down the road. One thing I do like about this bike is it has fenders. And some people like the look of no fenders. This is great, but when you go through your first gutter and kick water up your backside, you're gonna rethink the whole strategy of not having fenders in your bike. These things are hard to get right, but once they're right and they're not scraping or making noise, it really helps with not getting water up your backside. You also see on this bike, we did add a shock seat, so the seat will actually move up and down. So because it's a hardtail bike, meaning there's no suspension in the back, it helps really smooth out the suspension on this bike. Another plus to this bike is you can easily put it on a mount and mount it on the back of a truck on one of those, the mounts that I use. It basically ties in and holds it by the crossbar. Can't do it on this bike. We actually bought something to do that. Let me show you what that looks. So this is from a company called Tiger, Tyger. And basically what it does is it ties in to the seat post and to the steering neck here, and it allows you to hold it by this, so it adds a crossbar. With that said, it works very, very nice. The only issue that you run into with this is that you have to remove it and take it off. That's kind of a burden. And then the weight of these bikes. This bike weighs about 75, 80 pounds. That bike is close to the same weight. If you are older, I recommend maybe a folding bike that you can put in the back of a car or a truck, because trying to lift these things up to get them on a rack to take them where you want them to go, or get them in the back of a truck, it can be a challenge if you don't have help. Either getting them in or getting out. And also, the last thing you want to do is drop your new $1,000+ bike on the floor. So something to think about. It's the suspensions on these, and you'll notice this looks like a center drive. It doesn't have a center drive. It's just the type of frame that this is. Usually there's torque sensors in here on the newer bikes that there are. It just has the generic frame that has that in it. Your suspension, this is a baseline. The HLT 100 is a very baseline suspension. It works very well on this bike. Just know that not all suspensions are built the same. Look at the notes when you're doing your research. Make sure that people aren't saying that these suspensions squeak. These do require maintenance. You do have to lubricate the joints. This bike has never squeaked, it's never had an issue, but I also keep it lubricated so it doesn't run into any issues, because once these dry out, there's nylon bushings in here that will start squeaking, and they'll just be so annoying you won't even want to ride the bike, because every time you go down the street, it's and it drives you crazy. So some bikes are not built to the same quality when it comes to this type of cantilever suspension system. just look in the notes. If the suspension makes noise, just avoid that bike, because once it starts making noise, you got to replace all the bushings. And if you don't have a good warranty service from the provider, you're going to have an issue. A couple of things I've upgraded on this bike. We put a new seat on it. Most seats that you get, and I'll put this in the description, don't have ventilation. They're not that comfortable. They're very, very firm. So I do upgrade the seats on these. That does work out a lot better. This bike has had far more modifications. Actually, if I start adding up the modifications to this bike, it actually makes it just as expensive as this bike was. And that's where you'll find yourself. If you're trying to save money in buying one of these, you're generally going to buy a bike that you're going to have to do some stuff to make it rideable and more enjoyable, when you could have just bought the better bike. So, and what I say by that is I had to put a different bar on it. The bar was a straight bar, and you can see these both have fat bars. It was a straight bar, so you're like kind of in a leaned over position when riding the bike. Also, I had to put an adjustable neck on it. So that was another, between the wheels, tires, and everything else, I added another $200 to the price of this bike. Not the wheels, sorry, just the tires, and then the stem and the seat. Another thing I did, which was kind of cool, is I was able to put pegs in the back. This one did nicely with the pegs. This one I tried to do pegs, but as you can see, there's really no safe place to mount them. I mean, there is a place here you can mount them to, but I found that it wasn't thick enough steel where it was at, and you really ran a risk of your rider falling and then falling around your tire, which will also not be an enjoyable experience. So, lessons to be learned here. Buy the bike that you want. Don't try to save money. You're just going to buy a bike that's going to be a waste of time and money, or you're going to put a bunch of money in, and you might as well just buy the better bike. They still produce bikes. Same bike produces bikes still. It's a good quality bike. DYU used to be like King something, I forgot. They're out of business, rightfully so. Their product was not as good as this product. But if you see this style frame, even if it doesn't say same bike, this is a good quality frame. But again, just know that the lesser costing bikes that have this frame generally use cheaper shocks, cheaper bushings, cheaper tires. You won't see the Kenda tires. Usually they give away, if a bike has Kenda tires on it, it generally means the rest of the bike is built pretty dang well. Again, all brakes are not equal. Gemma brakes are the best brakes that are out there that I've found so far. We're going to continue riding the heck out of these bikes, get some more miles on them, just learn from what I learned. If you can verify you have Samsung cells, good quality tires, Gemma brakes, Shimano shifter, and just look, don't ignore the reviews. If you see good reviews, then it's generally a good sign, as long as they're not sponsored. If they're sponsored, then generally you got to take those with a grain of salt. So, and then your charging speed. You want to make sure that your charging speed makes sense for you and the type of riding you can do. Now, range-wise, both of these bikes will do upwards of 25, 30 miles with mixed riding. I mean, sometimes they'll do even more than that, depending on how, and that's really with not a lot of pedaling. That's really nice. And that also brings me to one thing. So one thing I wish that this bike had that one does is a twist throttle. This one has a thumb throttle right here. This one has a twist throttle. I do like the twist throttle a lot more. Eventually I'm going to upgrade this bike with the twist throttle. It is a much better setup. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please put them in. Like, subscribe, share. I have another bike, an all-wheel drive bike coming in. That's going to be pretty cool. I think you guys will enjoy that video. But these bikes aren't cheap. Again, minimum, you're spending on a bike like this, $1,000 generally, unless you can find it on some crazy sale on AliExpress or something like that. But what you should expect to spend on a good quality electric bike, 48 volts, 20 amp hour battery, quality brakes, again, hydraulic brakes. Make sure you don't buy a bike with manual brakes that can do over 30 miles an hour. That is the most dangerous thing you can do. Ask me how I know. So, for a good quality bike, you're looking at about $1,500, and that's a good Chinese quality. If you want like good, name brand quality, you're looking over $2,500. But a $1,500 bike will get you what you're looking for in a good quality setup. Look at the warranty. Make sure the company's been around a little while. And with the new bike that I'm bringing in, I actually researched this company a lot, and I really think that they're going to have a good, superior product compared to all the other manufacturers, and a warranty that they can actually back up. So please like, subscribe, share. More videos coming soon. Have a great day, guys.